Alrighty, I think we'll get this going here this afternoon. So good afternoon. For those who do not know me, I'm Member Service Coordinator Hillary Harris with CHBA VI. We're pleased to welcome MMP's Jenn Bogwald, the Business Advisor and Regional Leader of MMP's Succession Services team on Vancouver Island, and Brent Tolmie, Senior Manager of Succession Services. They'll be presenting the 3 key steps to a successful succession plan. We hope you interact with the chat feature below, ask questions, and participate. But before we start this webinar, I would ask everyone to make sure their cameras are turned off and their mics are muted. Thank you and enjoy the presentation.
Well, thank you, Hillary, and thanks to CHBA for hosting us today. I hope everyone is doing okay despite all the curveballs that 2020 has thrown at us. We have an hour together in total. Our presentation, we're aiming to leave time for questions at the end, but like Hillary says, feel free to put them in the chat as they come up and we'll address them as we can. You do not need to take notes, so I just want to let you know that today's presentation will be recorded for your reference in the future. And we'll distribute it out to you after, or I think Hillary will, with contact details as well. And I know we've got Mike Delves, I think, on the call today too. A lot of you guys know my partner, Mike Delves, so we both work out of the Nanaimo office. So my name is Jenn Bogwald, for those of you who I haven't met, and so I am a business advisor with MMP, like Mike. I work with a wide variety of owner-managed businesses. About half of my clients are in the real estate and construction space, and the other half, well, I just say I collect good people. So a lot of family businesses and good people. So my goal is really to empower our business owners to make really good decisions, and I hope that I become a partner in their business. I don't take equity in their business, but what I mean is that I do everything in my power to help them be successful and achieve their goals. So it's a super fun role that I get to play, and I'm excited to talk to you today about succession. Today we also have Brent Tolmie, and I'd like him to quickly introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Brent Tolmie, and I work with MNP, based in the South Surrey office, so over on the Lower Mainland. Unfortunately, I don't get to share your good fortunes of being residents of Vancouver Island, but I do have family there. And I joined MNP just back in the summer, and it's an interesting time to join in with COVID. But prior to that, I worked in succession and helping businesses exit, particularly with family-led businesses. And prior to that, I was a business owner. And way back when, I was part of a family business, having grown up in a 4th-generation forestry business, and helped the family exit that business in 2018. And parts of it still operate today with my uncles. So very close to business. I've been a business owner and owned a number of companies and done work in the resource sector, as well as heavy civil construction, renewable energy, and of course forestry. So very passionate about helping businesses achieve their goals and have a particular skill set in working with family dynamics. When you grow up with your dad and grandfather and uncles arguing at every family event over business, you get used to it. It becomes second nature. And so I feel very comfortable in working with family-led and complex family dynamics in terms of business. So it's just a pleasure to be here today with you all, and really enjoy the work of the CHBA, and know great people from over on this side of the pond involved. So just happy to be here today presenting with my colleague Jenn.
Yeah, we're happy to have you, Brent. It's awesome to have a like-minded professional join our team. So it's great to have you on board, Brent. So the reason you guys are all here today, so these are the 3 questions which we are going to go over today. We, from our experience, see these as very key to the success of a transition plan. And if you can spend some time here, then you can have a chance at having a really successful transition. We've all seen situations where these steps have been overlooked, and you get to the lawyer's office, there's tears, it gets ugly, sometimes it frustrates transactions. So obviously I'm very passionate about planning, and I believe if we can nail down these 3 questions, we can put you in a place that you can actually achieve your objectives. So how much money do I need to retire? How reliant is the business on me? And what is my ideal timeline for retirement? We do find a lot of people, as they start to talk about succession, they tend to, or they may be talking with their accountants, they may be talking with other advisors in their circle. They tend to jump straight into business valuations. They tend to jump straight into reorganizations. Oh, you want to sell? Okay, here, this is what we're going to do. And they kind of take it from there and start running. We're encouraging everyone, no, let's back it up. Let's spend some time in this first phase. And that's part of our process. So it'll help you down the right path.
It's true, Jen. So here's one of my favorite proverbs, which is that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. And I think that's true of succession. Normally when people hear the word succession, they think, well, I'm exiting, I'm retiring, I'm selling, that's it, I'm out. But really it's a process, it's a continuum. And so really the best time for succession plan was yesterday, but the second best time really is now. And similar to succession, when I worked in construction, I worked with Kiewit for a number of years on different projects. And they had a saying, it was called make a plan, work your plan. And quite often the superintendents would tell the juniors, hey, did you make your plan? Are you working your plan? And I know it's basic theology in terms of business, but it's a very effective tool. And a lot of people I find end up in business and they really don't have that end game planned out. And there was a sort of a legendary businessman that I grew up around, and he passed on before I was in the business, but he had done amazing work all across the province and even into the Yukon Territory. And the sad story is that though he was a multi-million-dollar enterprise, he lost it all and he actually died penniless. And at any given point in time, they could have taken money out of the company to vest his retirement, and it wouldn't have even impacted the bottom line. And yet he just kept on doubling down because he really didn't have the end goal in mind. And that's a bit of a cautionary tale. And so our goal really today is to help you get started. So how do we get started on that?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Yeah, so really we're going to start with how much money do I need to retire? So, you're going to read articles in the Globe and Mail, you're going to get all sorts of information about the answer to this question. But really there's so many variables at play here that how much you need to retire actually depends on a ton of variables. It's not that funny, but if you can tell me exactly when you're going to die, I can tell you exactly how much you're going to need, or at least that takes one of the variables out. So it isn't an easy question to answer. However, that's no reason to stop there and let it be overwhelming. There's ways we can help you work through this. So we will help you prepare, like that. Your accountant's your advisor. So usually what I like to do is I start with taking a full net worth of where you currently are. So that seems like a really easy task, but what I find with my business owners is that they're so focused on running their businesses, and they're so good at what they do that this whole numbers and accounting thing is just too overwhelming to them. They don't actually take full stock of what they have created and generated for themselves as of today. So we work with them to compile a big picture of where you're at today. Now, so obviously having that full big picture is a very important starting point as an advisor to be able to understand how we can help you, but also for you as the owner to understand where you're at.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Jen, most of these business owners probably have a significant amount of their net worth tied into their business. So what advice would you give them in terms of the business valuation? Because we hear that conversation so often.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, we do. And it is a valid point. A lot of our business owners, all they do is invest their money back into their company, buying new equipment and whatnot. So really at this stage of the game where we're trying to understand what you currently have, typically my advice is to start with a quick back of the napkin kind of approach to evaluation. If you've got a business that has, a bunch of equipment, a little bit of bank debt, and really you're running one crew, you're probably looking at your retained earnings value as sort of a good starting point. And then if you know that, of course, your equipment on the accounting books is going to be amortized for tax, and we like to be aggressive on taking as much tax deductions as we can. So there may be some extra value you can add on for your equipment. But if really the business is you and you're running your own like small crew, then that's typically where I would start for the purposes of this conversation. If again, the valuation side of things, of course, we know certified business valuators that can provide you a much more accurate figure. And that may be something you want to consider if you do have a very sizable business and you're trying to figure out, a more accurate starting point. But if you're just, running one crew and, start with something that you and your accountant discuss, and you can just have a bit of a back of a napkin number for purposes of this conversation. Yeah. And of course, if you've been able to build up your business where you're running, say, 3 crews, and you've got equipment, you've got some inventory, you've also got a bunch of systems and processes. Like if you're looking at it from a buyer's perspective, would they be able to buy your business and get going faster if they bought your business rather than just buying equipment? And if the answer is yes, you probably have some goodwill that you could add on to that value. So that's kind of a really quick conversation around value, but I hope that resonates with some people. And so once you have that starting point, obviously you're going to deduct off any liabilities that you have outstanding to sort of get to your net worth. So that's kind of starting off our retirement calculations here. And then to really know what you need to retire, you're going to have to also know, what does retirement look like? What am I actually going to spend in retirement?
Well, it's true, Jen, and it looks different for every group. And I think there's a misnomer that people will spend less in retirement because they'll get rid of a vehicle. That may not be the case. In fact, you may spend more in retirement on various things if you have goals of traveling, if you're at an age group and where people have been having children later in life. Are you going to be helping your children get established, looking after grandkids, or having to travel distances? We all know what the ferries cost these days, as well as the price of travel is going to escalate past COVID. So all these costs could in fact escalate in retirement. And so we really need to take a step back. And I know it's hard to envision the future, but of course we have builders on the call who are great at seeing what could be, not what is. And I'm always amazed at the ability to take a pile of lumber and to envision and to build off a set of blueprints. And similarly, that's really what we need to do, the activity that we need to exercise our minds with in terms of retirement, to sit down and to actually look at what will retirement be, and what will I do with my time. And I think that's really that piece of visualizing retirement. And it can take a while. Hey, Jen? Yeah.
And I just wanted to add here too, is this is another place where I find clients will get stuck and they'll say, well, I don't know what I'm going to spend, so that's it. I'm just going to go on to something else because this is too stressful for me. What I really like, we don't need to know with accuracy what you're going to spend. We just need a ballpark. Like, are we talking 50,000? Are we talking 200,000? And really, so again, encouraging you not to seek perfection in this answer, but to look for something as a starting point.
That's a great point, Jen. And I know in the tech world they call that MVP, which is a minimum viable product. And we can all look at our smartphones as to what they were today. But when we think back to the iPod Touch, which was essentially the first iPhone, it didn't even have a phone attachment. And some of us are old enough to remember phones prior to email or when the BlackBerrys first came out. So compared to what it is today, and the point of that is that things develop as we go. And plans are meant to be iterative. That means that you're changing, and it really is your plan. It's a live, living document, and you're not tied down to what you decide today, but it starts you off. And that imperfect action to get moving is really what we're encouraging folks to think about today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're right, Brent, it can take a while. So as far as coming up with visualizing what you are going to do with your time when you retire, some clients, I've sort of challenged them in this space, and they come back and they say, Jen, you know what I really want? I want to work 2 days a week until the day I die. And I'm like, okay, that's awesome. Like, I mean, I'm a proponent for making the most out of your life and not having your work, you have to work until you die. But, if you really, really want to work 2 days a week, let's make that as part of your plan. That's going to be part of your plan. So we'll make that happen, right? So it's not going to be the same for everyone. And some people may be willing to take a step back and keep running their company, but just have management take it on and still own it, be on the hook financially. Maybe that's what they want. Maybe that's what sits well with their retirement plan. So that is going to be very individualized to yourself. So this isn't an answer that I can tell you or any other advisor. You've got to be thinking like, this is my life. What do I want to do with it? And what does it look like? Be honest with yourself, because why else? Like if we don't reach for what we're looking for, then you're certainly not going to get it. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense.
that
radical honesty and sitting back and really thinking through these things and how we're going to spend our time is intensely important to the plan, because the plan is based on the quality of the inputs. And if we put a lot of not saying that we have to start with perfection, as Jen said before, but we do have to have a fair dose of realism. And you really do have to know yourself and what you feel comfortable in doing and what you think you're going to be doing with your time in retirement. And it really does help to take some time to think about that. And one of the most effective tools I've used, this next slide here, it's called 168 hours. And so, of course, we all know that there's 168 hours in a week. You may sleep less than this, but the blue tiles are blocked out with sleep. So hypothetically, if you're sleeping 6 or 7 hours a night, some sleep more, some sleep less, you know yourself. And you have some time for eating. You have some prep time to get ready for the day, and bio breaks, things like that.
Now you're gonna put lots of bio breaks as you get older.
Yeah, more bio breaks. That's right. You got to build out some more time. So. Recreation, and a lot of business owners, of course, are notorious for not having enough rec in their calendar. Vacations, maintaining your household, have family chores, family events, and so really, if you take 52 weeks in the year and you start to build this thing out and say, okay, well, at Christmas we like to shut down on the 23rd, and we don't start back up until that first Monday or Tuesday. Okay, great. You can pencil that in, and that can be a free-floating time. Or no, I need to get back to the office because we run a plumbing or heating firm, and we'll have people on call. So there's billables, there's chargeables. We want to make sure our inventory levels are correct and things of that nature. But we really start to get a sense when we sit down with that practical tool and map that out. And quite often I'll ask people, okay, well, we're going to sell your company, so what are you going to do with your time? And they say, well, it's, I'm going to golf more. I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. So you golf lots now? Oh, yeah, once or twice a year. Oh, okay. So once or twice a year. So are you going to go once or twice a week? Well, maybe, but probably not going to go when the weather's not good. Okay, so you might go once or twice a week for 8 months a year. Is that fair to say? Yeah, well, maybe more like 6. Okay. So we're going to, start to do the math here. And of course, we don't come up with very many hours. I'm going to fish more. Okay, well, I love fishing. Fishing's great. How often do you fish now? Like we get out to Hardy, for 3 or 4 days over a long weekend. Oh, okay, well, that's good. So really not during the week, more of a weekend event. Yeah, well, like to get out with the, on the stamp when the run's hot, and I'll get out there and, okay, yeah, that's seasonal, so that happens once a year. So really, you can start to see where I'm going with this, which is what we need to really sit down and have a frank self-appraisal with our spouses or significant others, and really start to plan out our time, and that really will allow us to see and actually develop what we're going to be spending. If you plan on taking up fly fishing, for instance, you've never done it before, well, you should probably have a budget for that equipment, things of that nature. And
it's a continuum, right? Like, so it's not that the day you retire, your habits are going to instantly change. But visualizing it now such that the day that it comes, you're not that person in tears in your lawyer's office. You've got something that's pulling you into the next phase of your life, and that you've sort of layered in your own skill set such that you are ready for your optimal retirement. Because I've seen that too, where we work on the numbers, we've got it all figured, we've got the structure dealt with, and the poor business owner doesn't know what the heck to do with themselves after. So it's like this visualizing, this isn't a point in time, this isn't a, I've got it perfect now, I know exactly what my 168 hours is going to look like. It's a, let's dream about it now so that we can take steps towards getting there. So
well, that's great, Jen. I totally agree, and it is a process and a continuum, but it gives us a starting place, that imperfect action to get to a plan. And I suppose that leads into our next topic, which is, how do we maximize our wealth? If we want, in theory, as much as we can have to retire, how do we get there, Jen?
Yeah. So what I do is, once we've kind of got the answers to those previous 3 questions, when you'd like to retire, approximately what you're going to do with your time, you're going to, or at this point in time, and we know where our starting point is. At this point in time, I reach out to my clients' current advisors. So if they've got a financial advisor on their team, I have an investment planner. Specifically, I'm looking for a certified financial planner. And if they've got one of those folks on their team, then I help them provide these inputs to their planner, such that they can run some what if scenarios and help the owner to understand, okay, so based on my family history, I think, I could live till I'm 95. Okay, so if I live till 95 and I, buy that boat that I put into my plan, and I spend, the amount of money that I think I need all these years, if I take into the fact of time value of money and, a reasonable rate of return on the investments, how much money do I actually need to retire in today's dollars? So that gives us now, we've got the full accounting or estimate of where we're at now, and then we've got the what if scenarios that show us, and then we're going to see there's a gap, right? Either there's a gap that you've identified, okay, so from here to retirement, I need to now make myself another $1 million, or do I need to make myself another $200,000, or like, how much wiggle room do I have in my plan? I went through this process with one client who had their head down, working super hard all these years, and finally put their head up one day and said, I need to start thinking about this. So we walked them through this process. We worked through their full net worth, which surprisingly had become quite complicated over the years, right? So they're good at running their business. Well, they bought another property here, and they have another commercial real estate over here. And all of a sudden, once we put all these pieces together, our goal was really to try and help them understand what they were going to do with their operating company. And they told me straight away, I'm selling to a third party. Even though this is a family business, I do not want to burden my children with the possibility of this business having risk. I would much prefer to have a check in the bank and, put that money on the stock market, because I just don't want my kids to be business owners. Okay, so we did this full process where we did their assessment. We ran the numbers, the what if scenarios. Didn't matter what we did in their what if scenarios, these guys had more than they could ever spend in their retirement without taking the value of their operating business into consideration. So a fabulous sort of realization for the business owners. And they in fact ended up selling their business a year after that to their kids. And that gave them, and the kids, by the way, really wanted the business. So this actually allowed them the confidence to make a plan that actually fit their goals and objectives and their families. So they now have a third generation business that continues to be successful. So I really do believe strongly in the value of knowing where you're at and what your own goals are, because it can help drive what you do with your own business. So I'm blethering again, Brent.
Oh,
I think
it's a great story, and it's a great lesson,
Yeah.
Jen. And
Yeah.
the other piece that is so intensely important into the planning process in terms of maximizing wealth is making sure that those secure pieces are covered, and that means updating our wills. So if you're thinking, you have adult children and you're debating on whether or not who their godparents were, maybe it's time to dig out your wills, or maybe you've had children recently and your wills don't reflect that, as well as powers of attorney. So every business person should have a power of attorney in place. They're a very inexpensive document, something that can be done. They can have limitations put on them for certain situations. If you're traveling out of the country, not that we are with COVID, and you're doing a deal, you can give a limited POA to somebody to sign on your behalf, things of that nature. So there's really just good, strong planning tools that don't leave your family and your business in a lurch. And if you need a more fulsome approach to maximizing wealth, that collection of sort of all the documents that are relative to your life, including your passwords, your key contacts, letters to loved ones. So if you were to unfortunately exit this planet, how would your family get on? And we have a product at M&P, it's called Lifebook. And this isn't a sales pitch by any means, but if you're busy people and you're actively engaged in your business, chances are you'll look at it and say, I can do that, because you can. You're smart people, you figure it out, no question there. Sometimes it's just something you should pay for. And the great thing about Jenn and Mike and other people from M&P is that to them, it's a target deliverable, and they will dog you until it is done. And then you have that secure document that has all that information collected for you. And it's relatively inexpensive if you're doing business, but to actually sit down and go through that planning process, to have that life book put aside. So if you're a business owner, and I know I talked about doing it lots, and it was hard to get into the office just to do a will. So sometimes it's worth the time to pay someone else to keep you accountable. So that's my 2 bits on that.
People that know me know I do hound them for these things. So, and
Great.
I'd be remiss when we're talking about maximizing wealth. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention tax. But you guys, I'm sure, all know about tax. So there's obviously tax when you sell your business. There's lots we can do to either defer tax or minimize your tax on your eventual exit. So to talk to your accountants early about this. So, Brent, we got to move on to our second point. So our second question of today's topic: how reliant is the business on me? So, this is a very important topic, and one that I constantly have conversation with business owners about. My first reaction when I talk to business owners about this is usually they proudly tout how important they are and integral they are to their business. And they'll say, yeah, I can't even take time off. Like this is so-and-so is calling me. I'm super important to the business. I just wanted to tell you guys all one little story. So one client who had come to me and she had said, I absolutely need to retire. She actually had some health issues. So she knew that her life expectancy wasn't as long as maybe other people in her field. And so she took some steps to try and create a plan. So as part of that process, it became quite evident that she was the bottleneck of the entire business's growth. And she was so integral to that business that if she had a cold, like almost everything just stopped. And So we had identified that early, and I had to have the conversation with her, like, look, your business is pretty much worth nothing, because guess what? Someone who buys your business is not buying you. So we have a lot of work to do to meet your retirement objectives. So we enlisted the help of her team, who was very dedicated to her and wanted her to achieve this objective. They all felt very passionately about this business, but they were being held back because she was controlling every aspect of it. So out of a strategic planning session that we had came that she had this one email address that all the customers knew to email her about all this, anything they needed. And then she would be the one that was directing those communications out. Well, it took us, it's really hard for business owners to change. And it did take us quite some time to actually get rid of that email address. So it took us about a year. And that was, monthly coaching with her and helping her kind of let go. A year after she gave up control and let her team help her, she actually sold her business for almost double what she had originally needed. And it's a nice success story. And obviously, just representing the fact that, yes, we get that you built this business, but if you want to get out of it, you need to make it so that it runs without you. And that's what someone's going to pay you money for. So yeah, here's another one of my favorite quotes. The more valuable you are to your business, the less value your business has. So, I've seen with clients is as you start working them through these conversations, they start to talk about their team more, and they start to, brag about the fact that they can take time off, and it's a very subtle shift in how they think of themselves and their business, and it doesn't happen overnight, but eventually they make decisions to make themselves a little less important to the business, which will allow them to be in a position to actually maximize the value of an ultimate sale.
Well, it's about durability, isn't it, Jen, in the sense that if we're the only part keeping our business together, then as you said, our business isn't worth very much. And I grew up in a family business where my dad, he was the eldest brother, and after my grandpa was exited, my dad was a key decision maker, and so that went on from 1980 to 1988, and till the day they retired, they never took more than 2 weeks off at a time because they had a fear of not being there to supervise payroll, and there was a lack of trust. So that was the environment I grew up in. And finally in 1988, my uncle said, "Look, you're going on a more than a week vacation." First time they'd taken 2 weeks in their whole lives. They went to Hawaii in 1988. I know because I got the T-shirt. So, and the point of that is that he felt that he could not leave because he felt that everything would go off the rails. What he found out was that wasn't actually the case, and in fact, his brothers did very well, and nothing exploded or caught on fire. And what he found out was that he wasn't as integral to the business as maybe he had thought. And that's not to say that you don't have to be there for key decisions, because obviously you're building a business for a reason, and that you are important to it, but that you shouldn't be the only factor that's keeping it together. And I think it's an important truth when you're looking particularly at exiting, because there's this misnomer, and I've heard it many times, that, well, I don't want to have employees tied up in senior management, or I don't want them to own shares in the business, because private equity doesn't like that. I want a clean buyer where there's no legacy employees attached to profit sharing or anything like that. And I always say, well, actually, that's absolutely incorrect. And in fact, it's the other way, that businesses who have effective management structures and systems in place that don't rely on the brain of the entrepreneur to succeed are the ones that sell for higher multiples, because that private equity firm can say, look, we'll just bring capital in, we'll exit the owner either once and for all or over time, but we love it when there's an effective team. And so it really is that investment in your team to build up who is going to be that next individual or individuals who can take on your tasks. So maybe it's not just one key successor, but you spread the details and the duties out over different people. So you have a, maybe your person in finance can actually step up and take some of those roles in terms of dealing with the banks or things that you've done. And so it is a process working through that, but you will absolutely achieve a better exit. And if you're looking at selling employees, that will increase your multiples too. So this is just wise from a business perspective to be able to systemize and to actually, in a way, work yourself out of a job.
Yeah. And for home builders, like if you can have a project manager or someone other than yourself overseeing the job and then it will be successful, then you may have created yourself some systems and processes that will allow you to exit and the business will continue with an income stream. But if commonly what I hear from home builders is that, well, unless I'm out there supervising or even on the tools, like things go sideways. And so I've got to be there. So what I encourage you, if you're in that position, is to focus on your systems and processes. Like, what can I put in place such that my team can follow a method that I've learned over the years with my experience, but what can I put in place so that my team can be as successful as I am if I'm not there? So there'll be little things that you can do and build in, and that will allow you to have a more saleable business. But I've had owners too where they say, well, I don't want to put all that effort in. So, so then you don't end up with a saleable business. So then you've got to end up with a different strategy. So it's not that now you just don't need a strategy. You absolutely still need a strategy, because as eventually you get older, your customers are going to start wondering, your team is going to start wondering. It might be harder for you to attract people if you don't have a plan in place of some force. So yeah, succession is not just for retirement. Yeah.
It really isn't. And our job as business advisors has really been to address that and get out in the marketplace and really to explain to people that it isn't just that one-time event where we can check it off like a wedding or something like that, but it's a process that we work up to, and we keep on developing the plan over time. And when you look at this slide, this is the way that M&P thinks about succession. So we have a lot of business clients, and obviously there's a lot of things going on this slide. And if you sort of start at the left-hand top corner, that's where really we engage with you as the business owner, and we do those steps that Jen and I have talked about, with looking at you from a personal net worth perspective, understanding what you are going to spend in retirement, and then we start to look at your business. And then we start to see, okay, well, do they need some core services? Are there some tax pieces or maybe bookkeeping that they can benefit from? The big star in the middle, which of course we are an accounting firm, but then really it's about that back of the napkin evaluation of what is my business worth if we took it to market, or do we need to raise the value? As Jen said, do you need to make that extra $1 million? How can we do that? Is that a strategic acquisition? Is that a merger? Things of that nature. Do we need somebody to help us with processes to map those things out over time? Mm-hmm. Or are we driving to exit? And is it a conventional, we call them different names, but are we selling to employees? Are we bringing a key manager in? Are we looking for a strategic buyer? Is this being passed down to children, or are they buying it? Different things like that. And then once I do have this liquidity event, do I need help managing that? Do I need referrals to wealth management? Am I a high net worth individual with lots going on that could benefit from a family office scenario where there's a family CFO and some governance involved to keep things on the rails? Am I interested in philanthropy as a tax planning strategy? Because that's something that M&P does very inexpensively these days as well. So all of these things for you to know that we're thinking about you, we're thinking about the Canadian business owner, the home builder on Vancouver Island, that is building towards this event. And so we do spend a lot of time thinking about it because it's important to get this right, because you've built an enterprise. We want to see you exit well. We want to see your family well looked after, and certainly your suppliers that rely on you buying X amount of plumbing supplies from whomever you're wholesaling from, the clients that rely on you to build great products in the marketplace. as well as the community that looks at you, and you're sponsoring athletic teams, you're giving to charities. And so there's that piece of durability that really needs to be passed on, because strong communities are ones that have great entrepreneurial business partners that do care and love their cities and give to them. And so that's really where MNP plays well. And we just think about that Canadian entrepreneur, which is you, and that we want to make sure that you're well taken care of in your exit.
Well, and Brent, that did sound like a little bit of a sales pitch, but I also want to point out, like, a lot of advisors will say that they're doing succession planning, estate planning, or whatnot. And I think the difference that what we do is that we're billing you hourly. We don't take, there's no, your success to reaching your goal is our success. So we're not, we have no sort of ulterior motives. We're not going to take, part of your company and now it's part of my portfolio, and great, I just increased my net worth as well by, no, we're business partners with you, and we bill you hourly, and we bill as we go, but we're not trying to sell you anything. So I think that's the place where we're different than a lot of other folks out there. Okay, we got to get moving here, Brent. So what is my ideal timeline for retirement? Change takes time, right? As we talked about. So again, it's a continuum. It's not something where you're going to say, as of that date, all of a sudden I'm going to love golf, and now I'm going to just spend all my days golfing. So, my ideal timeline for my clients' retirement is in the future, so that we can plan for it. So the more time we have, the more time that we can put things in place to make sure that that's successful. But yeah, lead the process. Don't get in the corner of having to sell because now you're 75 and you're like, look, my health isn't good, I got to get out. If you wait that long, then it's not going to be as fun, quite frankly.
No, it's true. And when you get to the point where you're frustrated, and I've engaged with lots of clients who decide all of a sudden that I need out, and that's really when you can lose value, because you haven't had the benefit of the time to plan for tax, to plan for any reorganization, to clean up any of the processes, and to really get your company in the best shape of its life towards that exit event. And I worked with a manufacturer, and unfortunately I was too late to affect much change, because the individual had decided that they were done. And in their heyday, they were doing $8 million in manufacturing. They had a clean bottom line. They were doing 30% gross margin. It's a beautiful business, stable, hardworking, good people, good employer. But the owner got bored and a bit of a savant in terms of engineering, and just wanted to do other things. And as I saw the intersect of how much time I was spending on the business was doing this, while recreation was doing that. And so sort of had that key intersect. And at the end of it, he decided to shut the operations down. So he canceled work. And then he came and said, well, can I sell my processes? Can I sell anything here? And, it was hard to bring him to the place where we had that conversation and said, look, you left somewhere between $8 and $10 million worth of value on the table based on some simple calculations, because you had 30% gross margin. You were a growing business. Your revenue was going up, not down. And now we're selling you off for parts. And that's the worst possible outcome in my mind. And so we really do want to think through, what is that timeline? And when do I want to have more time for recreation, for family, for travel, and things of that nature?
And this is one of my favorite answers when you ask somebody when they're going to retire, or it's 5 years. And so then you ask them the next time you see them, I think it's going to be 5 years. So then another year goes by and it's 5 years. So we call that the never plan, or the rolling 5-year plan. So that's not really a plan. So, no. And it's not to say again that you have to have it perfect, but if you can visualize in your mind the year, like, that's where I challenge clients. So if they say to me, okay, 5 years, I say, okay, so by 2025, okay. And you'd be amazed though, like, if you turn it into actual dates, how people stop and think about that. And they go, 2025, I'll be this old then, my kids will be this old then, and they start to actually make it their plan if you can put a date on it. So that's my
Absolutely.
challenge out to everyone, is put a date on your plan, not just a 5-year never plan.
Well, it's true, Jen, and you do really have an opportunity to make that plan right now, or
Oh.
there's the alternative. So, really, it's not just about you. You do leave your family struggling.
Mhm.
You can end up in probate if your estate isn't in proper order. I'll tell you a story about buried treasure real quickly. I knew a farmer who loved to buy gold. He would buy gold bars with any savings, and he would paint them basically the color of a rock, and he would leave them out on his fence line of his large farm. And the family to this day has no idea if they got all the gold or not. So there is literally buried treasure on that property. And it's just something silly that he never bothered to write a one pager stating where all the gold was. And of course, it's an extreme example, but that really highlights the case. So we just don't want to leave these problems behind for other people. It causes business issues because in the case of that manufacturer, we could have achieved a much higher exit for him had he thought about why he was frustrated and bored. He could have installed a manager and kept that profit, different things like that. And really, it just comes down to waste. So we work hard to create revenue, to employ people, to build something for ourselves and for our families. Why would we not take these steps? Why would we, sort of allow waste to enter into our operations as opposed to getting ahead of it now?
Yeah, and if you don't take these steps, and some people may not do it for themselves, but certainly do it for the people that are relying on you. And if you don't, really, who wins is nobody. And you maybe the lawyers, right? You end up in disputes, and maybe there's, yeah. Anyways, nobody wins. So take some steps, and the more people that rely on you, the more important the plan becomes, right?
It's true.
Mm-hmm. So, hang on. I think it was our last. Is this our last slide? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. A goal without a plan is just a wish, and that's absolutely my favorite quote on this planet. And it just emphasizes that if we are not putting a plan in place, and again, not to say that the plan can't change, but really we need to back that goal of one day having some financial freedom and being able to travel, being able to help our kids, to be invested in the community, to do great things with our time aside from work. We will never get there if we fail to plan.
Mm-hmm. And so even if you do want to work forever, at minimum, develop an emergency plan. So if something happens to you where you're unable to work, make sure that someone can pay your employees. Make sure that someone can fulfill your contracts. Because if you leave your team in that kind of mess, again, nobody wins. So even if you don't have a succession plan necessarily, have an emergency plan. We'll open it up for questions. If anybody's got, I think we've got 10 minutes left. So if there are any questions, feel free to unmute and ask them, or you can pop it in the chat.
Absolutely. Yeah.
As of right now, I don't see anything popping up, but we'll give it a couple minutes. You never know.
Yeah.
Excellent.
On a lot of things, it's just kind of a personal topic. So if you don't feel comfortable asking the question, feel free to follow up with us after, and we'd be happy to answer a few questions.
Yeah, and I know, Jen, you'd mentioned before that you'll have the webinar available. We do as well. And I'll also make sure to let everyone know your guys' contact information. That way, again, if you want any questions afterwards that you don't want to ask everybody, I'll give it you, Jen and Brent's information through the email for sure.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
And to be clear, Hillary, I don't have the webinar, so it'll be.
Oh, you don't? Okay, well, I do. So don't worry.
Remind people that you would be sending it out. So yeah.
Yes, I do have it saved to the cloud, and not a problem. Anyone that would like it, I can definitely send it to them.
Perfect.
It's a lot of information to take on, but if you do have any questions, feel free.
You did cover a lot of information, but even a couple of questions I thought of, you answered along the way. So that's always good too. I do have a couple questions here. One's from Roy. I'm 57 and I have 6-year-old twins. What's a good plan?
Yeah. That's, what's a good plan? Do you have childcare options? Yeah, twins. Yeah, it depends obviously on what your business is, and what I think it's great that you're here today, because I think everybody should have a plan, and I would encourage you to do the visioning exercise of where you see yourself in retirement. Involve your spouse if you have one in that conversation. You know, if you've got twins, obviously your life is really busy. So I think part of what I would do is try to empower my team such that I could spend as much time with my kids as I could. And so if you can encourage your team to start taking some of the required steps in the business that you're currently performing, whether you're selling your business or not, that's going to give you a fantastic balance. And when you are looking to sell down the road, at least you'll have a business that's less reliant on you. So just try and empower your team to do some of the management functions that you have. And if you don't have anyone on your team that you feel like you can trust, keep looking to find someone, because I think having that second person in your business is going to be really important to flexibility in your life. So I don't know, that's kind of my first thoughts. Brent?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with all of that. So starting with a plan and working through some of the topics that we've talked about in terms of personal wealth and what you need to set aside from your family. You know, being in the higher age bracket with younger kids. But I think it all starts with sitting down and really developing and understanding what your net worth is, what it is from a business perspective. What can I do, you know, to improve my net worth on sale if that's where I'm going, or if I do need to build a successor. So I think those are all relatively important points at this point in your life. And congratulations, twins are excellent, and 6 years is a fun age. So I'm sure you've got lots in store. We have another one from Hugh Owen. Home builders have a tail effect in their business with having to provide 1, 2, 5, and 10-year warranties. Do you have solutions for retiring and taking care of warranty obligations? Yeah, absolutely. I think this is understanding, you know, potentially who could be a successor, and really understanding what that liability could look like and modeling that out on a longer path. Wouldn't you take some approach like that, Jen?
Mm-hmm. And also the lawyers have their tricks to dealing with that, maybe actually in the purchase and sale agreement itself, where they outline a process for warranty work post sale. So you can you can do that. And I've seen others where we set it up as where you end up selling some of the company out of the corporation, and selling the assets out, and then keeping some ongoing work yourself and hanging on to the warranty. So it's really something that needs to be addressed with the lawyers.
Yeah, and I think too, if you're a quality builder and the warranty claims, you're able to demonstrate a track record of minimal warranty claims, keeping track of those items in terms of your financial accounting. Can really prove to a potential owner. And so it's really about dealing with the risk, because if I'm buying your business, I'm thinking through, okay, what are the potential risks? So here are the liabilities in the past. How have those been mitigated? Well, you know, really the builder has a track record of minimal warranty claims because they're an excellent builder. Oh, okay, I can deal with that risk, and I can accept that. And maybe we can talk about an indemnity, and that's not so much of an issue because you're proud of your work and you understand that there won't be any claims, or very minimal. So things of that nature, or they can be addressed upon sale.
Yeah, like I say, create process around the claims so that they can't, like the buyer can't just put anything through warranty and then charge you for it. There'll be a process that the lawyer can address in the purchase and sale agreement.
Yeah, and that's true of inventory too. So quite often if you are selling, and I know we're using selling as an example, but understanding what you have in inventory, and you know, if you're more on the manufacturing side of the home trades, understanding what you have in inventory, and that inventory isn't stale dated, but that it's fairly accurate, so that if you do an equalizing calculation post-transaction, you're not having to, you know, buck up more money for a purchase or detract from a sale because your inventory wasn't quite correct. So we do want to lean things out and get them as organized as possible if we're working towards that exit event.
Does anyone have any more questions? I think that might wrap us up for the day then. Jen and Brent, I want to thank you so very much for your time today. And again, anyone, if you need any of their information or would just like to ask them more questions, feel free to reach out to me and I will make sure to pass that along.
Great.
Thanks so much, Hillary.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Thanks everybody for your time.